Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I would like to call to order the board meeting of New Haven Unified School District for Tuesday, September 17th. The board will now reconvene to open session and report out any actions taken on closed session items. Regarding 4.1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Superintendent Evaluation, Government Code Section 54957, there is nothing to report. Regarding item 4.2, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, Release, Government Code Section 54957, there is nothing to report. 4.3, Update on Negotiations with NHUSD Bargaining Units, Conference with Legal Counsel, Government Code Section 3549.1, there is nothing to report. And lastly, regarding 4.4, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Significant Exposure to Litigation pursuant to Paragraph 2 of Division D, Subdivision D, and Paragraph 3 of Subdivision E of Section 54956.9, one case, there is nothing to report. Moving on to the procedural items, may I have our students lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Ishihira.
Here.
Wong.
Here.
Chima.
Here.
Camus.
Here.
Ward.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to the next section, 5.3, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Craig.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihira.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Camus.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next section, 6, which is the recognition, presentations, and/or actions. 6.1, New Haven Schools Foundation, presentation of grant awards to New Haven District Nurses, Concepcion, and to provide CPR training. Dr. Pisani. Okay, go ahead. I think you're up.
Okay.
Wow.
My name is John Shockley. I'm the president of the New Haven Schools Foundation. We have a number of our board members here in support, and we're here tonight to present 2 grants that go to staff members across multiple sites in the district. So as you may know, our foundation provides program enrichment grants to district staff members as well as student scholarships. This year, we're very pleased to report that we're handing out $61,000 in grants, a record for us. This is due to a lot of generous donors and sponsors. In particular, I want to call out Supervisor Richard Valle, who's been most generous in supporting our program this year. We're also have given out $155,000 in student scholarships last year, which brought us over the $1 million mark on scholarships since we became an independent organization. So we're very happy to present that to the board as well as the grants tonight. I would like to point out, of course, this is due to our generous sponsors and donors, but also our fundraising activities. So we have 2 coming up, our Mutt Strut on October 5th at Masonic Homes, as well as our gala 2 weeks later on the 19th. And we hope that a number of you can attend that. We're looking forward to both very good events in both cases, so I encourage you to attend. At this point, I'd like to present the first grant. This is Steaming into the Future with Robotics. It's presented to the science specialists of Kitayama, Pioneer, Emmanuel, and Hillview Crest, and it's in the amount of $4,200. I'm going to have our recipients come up. We'd like to get a picture. We do have our big check to present.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, let's
stand
behind.
Are we going to go up there? Stand with them. Down there. Yeah, let's go. That's what we do.
What's on it?
Wait, what?
I got it. I'm just gonna zoom in on that tracking number. Get a little closer together.
Right, ready? Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Thank you.
We have one more check, one more picture. This is to the New Haven nursing staff. This is $5,000 for a CPR training program. And this was supported particularly by Supervisor Valle.
You can, I'll take the pictures.
Hello, if I may, very briefly. My name is Megan Foster. I'm the Coordinator of Special Services. And on behalf of the health team, they've asked me to say thank you and to share that last year we served 198 people across the district and community, and that we're very excited about the opportunity to continue this work next year, or this year, excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, I got
For
you.
all the phones.
I got you.
I'll stand in there.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, don't move. Handshake one. I got you right here. All right, beautiful. This is one for the wallet. You can just tell. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I want to open it up to any comments, if you guys have any.
Well, I did. So I've actually sat on. I've sat on committees where we're trying to figure out like which grants to fund and which. It's a really tough. It's a really tough job to kind of narrow it down. It's great to see $60,000. That's actually I think the most I remember in a really long time. That's great. Love the work the foundation does and keep it up.
And I understand that the foundation have a gala and next month, right?
2 weeks after Saturday.
Saturday. Okay.
After the bus drive, which is the
October 19th and October 5th.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Helen, and thank you so much all the directors to join us today, and also raising that many funds to provide to teachers and to our students. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone as well. I know how hard you work for every penny for the students and the teachers. I really commend you, because I have a hard time doing it myself. So I thank you so much. You put a lot into this, I know. So really, I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you. Well, happy birthday, Helen. I know it's your birthday today. And I also wanted to say, well, I had an opportunity to sit in the meeting last night of the foundation, and it was absolutely beautiful to see that the work that they do And apparently this year, there were a lot more checks that Helen and looks like John had to write, and that was the tough part for them. But they really enjoyed it. So, I mean, it's great. I think it's growing, and it's continued to grow. I know last year we did over $144,000 worth of $150,000 worth of scholarships, and I think this year we're probably going to top that. Thank you all so much, and also thanks to Supervisor Valle for helping support some of these funds as well. Thank you very much. Since you covered both grants, I think we can move on to the next topic, which is the 6.3 resolution number 012192, recognition of Latinx Heritage Month, September 15 to October 15, 2019. We do have a resolution that we will read out, and I believe we have a few members that are going to be accepting the resolution. Yeah, okay. Well, Tracy, I think was. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and read the resolution first, and Tracy, if you have any comments to make, and then we will approve it as well. So, resolution number 012-1920, Latinx Heritage Month, September 15 to October 15, 2019. Whereas American history reflects a determined spirit of perseverance and cultural pride on the part of the Latinx population in its struggle to equally share in the opportunities of a nation founded upon the principles of freedom and liberty for all people. And whereas the anniversaries of many independence and liberation movements throughout Mesoamerica, Latin America, and the Caribbean islands occurred during this time period. And whereas recognition and appreciation for the many valuable contributions of the Latinx people to our society is celebrated annually during Latino Heritage Month. And whereas Latinos comprise 39% of California's population and 22% of Union City's population, and are an integral part of the social, artistic, linguistic, cultural, intellectual, and economic tapestry of our community, and whereas the economic impact of the Latinx population can be measured in terms of nearly $1.7 trillion in purchasing power, more than 4.37 million U.S. Latino-owned businesses contributing over $700 billion to the economy annually, and a collective GDP of more than $2.13 trillion annually. And whereas the total number of students of Latinx heritage enrolled in the New Haven Unified encompasses 38% of the total student population, and 22% of all students that speak multiple languages speak Spanish. And whereas the total number of students of Latinx heritage enrolled in public schools statewide encompasses 54% of the total student population, and whereas students of Latinx heritage are deservedly proud of their rich and diverse cultural heritage, which includes histories, cultures, and contributions which will increasingly impact the social and economic life of our community and the state of California. And whereas it is important that the history curriculum in our schools at every grade level reflects the experiences of men and women of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups so that each student has an opportunity to understand the common humanity of all people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the New Haven Unified School District will commemorate Latinx Heritage Month with appropriate instructional activities to recognize the significant contributions that Latinos have made in helping our nation achieve greatness. Wow, that was a handful, a mouthful as well, but great statistics there. And I don't know if we have anyone speaking on this, but may I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 012-1920?
Let's move.
Second.
Discussion?
Comments.
Roll call, please.
Comments, I
Aye.
think.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. And I think we have a resolution that we can actually present. And if I can have the board members join us one more time, or do you want to just present it?
Okay, right here, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Well, we should be the next.
Thank you. So just quickly on behalf of the New Haven Equity Council, as one of the tri-chairs representing myself and Principal Camacho and Miss Manny Allen, I just want to thank the board also on behalf of our Latinx community for passing this resolution.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I think you wanted to have a comment.
Yeah, just, I never saw it. I know I was part of the Equity Council when we started it. But then being more, kind of so many meetings, I could not keep up with that. Thank you so much for writing the beautiful resolution. I especially like the last but one paragraph. It is, whereas it is important that the history curriculum in our schools at every grade level reflects the experience of men and women of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups so that each student has an opportunity to understand the common humanity of all people. So this is the real leadership that not just for ourselves or Spanish, but all people. Thank you so much, Tracy, for your hard work on the Equity Council and your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, I have a couple comments. And
Sure.
yes, number one, and I learned the new word, Latinx, right?
Latinx.
Latinx, okay, I see. And yes, and in our communities, and we have many and Latinos and Latinx people and speak Spanish, and even in the middle school, in the high school, we also provide English and Spanish class, and we also have a Spanish immersion program, and we know the people's Latinx and contribute many the cultures in the communities, and it's very good, and it's a good time then to recognize them and to the contribution for the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to save it for items from the board, but I will say it right here, right now. Thank you, Tracy, for all the work in the Equity Council and for recognizing everyone for their contribution in our society. Thank you.
7.1, public hearing regarding the proposed map options for the by-trustee area election systems. Dr. Thompson?
Well, we have the public hearing here. I believe that you
Yeah, we
to
have
read
some
the-
legal verbiage that I have to read
Yeah,
before I let you
gotta read the
present.
script. So you can go ahead and do that, and then we'll turn it over to the
Okay.
attorneys.
So we will now convene a public hearing to receive public testimony concerning proposed trustee voting area plans associated with the district's transition to a by-trustee area election system. Under California Election Code Section 10010, the board must hold at least 2 public hearings prior to holding a public hearing to adopt a final trustee voting area plan. I will now open it up for presentation.
Good evening, trustees, staff, cabinet, community. I'm Jonathan Salt with F3. I'm joined by Larry Furchaw of Cooperative Strategies, and we've been assisting the district along this process, and we are almost at the finish line. What is the California Voter Rights Act, or CVRA? I know we've been through this many, many times over the last few months. Essentially, if an at-large election impairs the ability of members of protected classes from influencing the election, it might violate the CVRA. The only safe harbor from a CVRA claim is to transition, as the district is doing, to a by-trustee area election system where the district will be divided into 5 roughly equal population areas, and board members will be elected by the voters of that particular area. The current stage we are at now is the draft map stage, and then at the next board meeting, the board will have one more public hearing and potentially adopt one of the options. But I'll hand it off to the demographer to talk about some of the criteria.
Thank you, John. Members of the board. So we've drawn these maps to be roughly equal in terms of total population. So each of the 5 areas has about the same number of people, plus or minus 10% between the largest and smallest. The other considerations are compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act and not doing anything to inhibit members of protected classes from being able to influence outcomes of the election. The areas have to be compact, they have to be contiguous. We're looking at communities of interest and keeping folks together. And then the areas cannot favor or discriminate against an incumbent political party or candidate.
So as we mentioned, this has been a long road. This is the 4th public hearing in addition to 2 community meetings from last week. And so the final step here for the district will be 2 weeks from tonight at the final public hearing that'll be similar to tonight's. Last chance for folks to provide feedback to the board on which map options they like or don't like prior to the board taking a vote.
So just a background, and we've gone over this a few times now in terms of the demographic data of the school district, 75,211 residents as of the 2010 census, and you can see the breakdown of the total population by ethnicity as well as the population 18 and over. The map on the left-hand side showing the boundaries of the school district and the cities of Union City and the portion of Hayward that are within the district's boundaries. This next slide shows the citizen voting age population. So this is an estimate of folks who are 18 and over and citizens of the United States and are therefore eligible to register to vote. And the map on the left-hand side shows the concentration of the Asian citizen voting age population, which is the largest, not only the largest group, but the largest protected class under the Federal Voting Rights Act within the school district. So you can see the areas of concentration. The darker the blue area, the higher the concentration is there. We also look at the Hispanic Latino population, the second largest protected class at just about 20%, but you can see an area of increased concentration on the eastern side of the district there. So that's something we're also taking into account as we create these areas. We have 3 scenarios that we've shared with the board and the public to date, and so we'll just go through those real quick. This is scenario 1. In all the scenarios, area 1 is yellow, 2 is green, 3 is red, 4 is blue, 5 is purple. You can see the school sites are located on the maps. You can see the board members' residences, so you can see where each board member resides within these maps. On the lower right-hand side, you see the legend that, in addition to telling you what color corresponds to which trustee area number, also says the sequence of when the elections would occur under each one. So in scenario 1, areas 1, 2, and 3 would be sequenced to be elected in 2020, and areas 4 and 5 in 2022. So area 1 starting in the eastern side, going to Mission, Dakota, area 2 along, kind of following along Mission and Dakota as it makes that bend there all the way down to Alvarado Niles. Area 3 coming across, and then it crosses the 880 in the northern part, and then areas 4 and 5 coming around the bend there. In terms of demographics, these areas are roughly equal in terms of the population variance. We wouldn't share them with you if they weren't in compliance with the law. We have increased areas of influence for protected classes for areas 4 and 5 for the Asian citizen voting age population, and area 2 for the Latino population. You see we get to a majority area in area 2 for the Latino population, and areas 4 and 5 we get a majority Asian citizen voting age population areas. We also see increased influence for the African American citizen voting age population in areas 1 and 2, just a couple percentage points above the district as a whole. So scenario 2 is very similar to scenario 1, coming from east to west to Mission. You can see here we cross Mission we cross Dakota at Myers and take in that area right by the district office there. And instead area 2 comes across Mission to Conley High School area. John's going to point that out on the map for everybody. Area 3 and 4 both cross the 880 in this scenario. So remember in the previous scenarios we only had one area that crossed the 880. In this one we have both areas crossing the 880. And then area 5 in the southern part. The sequencing on this one is a little bit different. It would be, as we've currently done it, areas 1, 3, and 4 in 2020 and 2 and 5 in 2022. But that's something that the board could certainly change as you look at this scenario if this is one that interests you. In terms of the demographics on the following slide, again, we're in population balance. We see area 2 where we have majority Latino citizen voting age population. In areas 4 and 5 where we have a majority Asian citizen voting age population. Area 3 just just under 50%, so we'll highlight there as being almost a majority. And then increased influence in areas 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the African American citizen voting age population. Finally, scenario 3, similar to scenario 1 in that area 1 comes across to Mission Dakota, area 2 in that same spot there, area 3, instead of coming over the freeway in the northern part, comes over south of Smith, and then 4 and 5 just fill in the rest of the district there. Same sequencing as scenario 1, and we'll go to the next slide. Same type of demographics as the previous scenarios, with area 2 being a majority Latino, areas 4 and 5 majority Asian citizen voting age population, area 3 being a slight increase above the district average for the Latino population of less than a percentage point, and then areas 1 and 2 for the African American citizen voting age population.
I'm going to go back to 3.
So we've got we've heard some feedback at the board meetings, at the community input meetings, and we'll be preparing an additional scenario to include on the website by tomorrow. That will be kind of a mixture of scenarios 2 and 3. So it will be what you see in 3, with the difference being that the green area, area 2, would cross Mission and take in that neighborhood that's part of the city of Hayward in the northern part of the district. And then area 1 would come across Dakota to Myers, right where we're at here, in that part of the district to balance the population. So we've heard some feedback that 1 and 3, but also some feedback about scenario 2 liking how area 2 crossed and kept that Hayward portion together. So we'll have scenario 3A that kind of achieves those comments released on the website at that helpful link that you see right there, and be available for the next public hearing as part of the presentation.
Okay, very well, thank you so much. So as part of this public hearing, members of the public may submit comments on the establishment of voting area boundaries for the new trustee voting areas that will be established as part of the district's transition from an at-large election system to a by-trustee area election system. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to make comments on this matter and this matter only. We have received...
No speaker.
Oh, no speakers, okay. So, well, thank you so much for the presentations. The public hearing received public testimony concerning proposed trustee voting area plan is now closed.
Oh, can we have board has the comment? Can we ask the questions?
Sure, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Because we don't have time inside. So if you see that in today's presentation, scenario 1, population trustee area 1, 10,734, trustee area 2, 8,372, and 10,550, 11,000, 12, 11,000, 21. In all 3 scenarios, trustee area 2 has 8,372, and even in area scenario 2, it's a little bit more, but in scenario 3, 8,000, but others are like 10,000 or even 11,000. Area 5 is 11,778. I know this is a population estimate from 2013 to 17. It says in the title, but in the previous maps, the one you have presented on the website and given us the hard copies too, is much more kind of balanced. The population is much more balanced. So which one which one is the true data?
So when we divide the areas into roughly equal population, we use that total population. So if you look back on that map, you see it's the second column over where it says total population, and each of those are going to be about 15,000 people on total population. That's what has to be balanced between 10% between largest and smallest. And for those of you with bionic eyes on the screen there, you see that second column over is what we're talking about. When you go to the last column over, that's the citizen voting age population estimate. So that's an estimate of folks who are 18 and over and citizens. And you're right, that's going to vary substantially potentially based on...
Oh, sorry, I thought it's that's the voting age population. It's not the total population.
And so that just varies based on different areas may skew younger or older or higher or lower in citizenship status.
So for every map option, I believe, more or less, there's somewhere between 14,700 or so and 15,000 and change in each area. So it is balanced that way by total population.
Right, I got it. So I was somehow, I missed the voting age population versus the total population. So this is correct. And I believe there are some opportunities for us to, I mean, you can do it later on in the adjusting the population a little bit more, because area 5 is always like on the highest population, and there are small itsy bitsy sectors that we can adjust the population there between 4 and 5, or even moving towards the 3 or 2, because area 5 is mostly is the most population. First area 5, and scenario 1 is 14,000.
So it varies in scenario
Only
1.
scenario 1 is 14,500, okay, which is, okay, let me check number 3. I think there was a little bit discrepancy. Okay, 3. Oh, they're all right. Let's see, scenario 3. Yeah, in scenario 3, there will be a small adjustment can be done to kind of achieve the more, because it's 15,593 and 14,958 and 14,433. So it can be adjusted because streets, they will allow us to adjust the natural boundaries. For example, in map 3, if you keep the boundary of the Dyer Street, scenario 3, you see that?
I'm looking.
Scenario 3.
Yeah, scenario 3.
Uh-huh.
So if you keep the boundary on the Dyer Street, like you did it in case 1, scenario.
I think, are you asking essentially if the scenario 1 version that goes
Right.
along Dyer could
Yeah.
be like that in area 3?
Yeah, it's better division of the population, more close to the number you have found out, 15,000.
Yeah, I mean, instead of it being overpopulated, it becomes underpopulated as it is in scenario 1. So it's
Scenario
slightly
1.
underpopulated in scenario 1. It's just under, it's negative 2.78% in scenario 1 when we do use Dyer. And when we cross Dyer in scenario 3, it goes up to 3.88%. So it's a swing of about 5 percentage points there. And then that would put area 4.
We can go a little bit on the seaside, I mean the University Boulevard. We can go a little bit on the north side, but keep the natural boundary of Dyer, that's more, see there is a small population to balance it. Maybe I can let you know offline.
Yeah,
later
remember,
on.
Tim, I was going to ask you if you
Yeah.
can send those via
Yeah.
email, so
I
that
will
way they have all the
Yeah.
details, as opposed to just trying to figure out, while we're moving,
Right.
in moving pieces. So I
Sure.
think it's best if you send them an email.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments on this
That's it.
particular? No?
That's it.
Oh, actually, just one question. With the census coming in 2020, we'll get new numbers. Is there going to be an abbreviated process to this, or are we going to have to do this the same exact process again after 2020?
It's much more abbreviated. The district would be required within, I think, 6 months of when the census data is released in 2021. You'd have to, whatever map the board ultimately picks, you would need to essentially review the new census data onto the map and see if there's still this 10% or less population variance, essentially if there's still equal population. If there's not, it's just a tweak. It's not 5 public hearings, but it's minor adjustments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Moving on to the next section, the information items, 8.1, Measure M Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report to the Board of Education. Ms. Heldman.
Good evening, Superintendent Thompson and members of the board. Annette Heldman, I'm your Chief Business Officer. Before I introduce our presenter for this item, which are 2 years worth of annual reports regarding our bond program, I would like to take this moment to thank our committee members, even though not all of them could be here tonight. I would like to read their names in recognition of their dedication and hard work. We have Mr. Michael Ritchie, Ms. Vicki Lake, Ms. Pam Carnes, Ms. Mayra Janet Ruiz Louise, Ms. Eileen Reinier, Ms. Mary Schlarb, and Supervisor Richard Valle. So we want to recognize their time and their dedication in helping us get up to speed with regards to these required reports, as well as put us on track. As you can see, there are 2 years of annual reports before you. And also to putting their work and their efforts in making sure that we are doing good in terms of the promise that we made to our community by way of Measure M bond. So with that, I would like to introduce our presenter of this item, who is the chair of our Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, Mr. Michael Ritchie.
Good evening, board and superintendent and staff. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Ms. Hellman. I was going to recognize their committee members as well. So I joined the Bond Oversight Committee and was elected chair in April of 2018. I have a very strong commitment to this role, as I was the co-chair of the Measure M bond election. And I know that voters demand that their tax dollars be used as was discussed in the bond measure. So spent according to that, as well as, of course, spend every penny wisely. So that is my commitment to this committee and the community. As you're aware, the bond passed under Proposition 39, which requires that we have a bond oversight committee. And our duties are to report to the board, to you, on the following: review construction and modernization expenditures, provide an annual report, and fill vacancies and conduct recruitment of new members as needed. So we've had 5 meetings so far since the establishment of the committee. Perhaps the most exciting meeting that we held was the one over at Italy on Veracruz in the new 21st century classroom. I'm sure you've all had a chance to take a look at that. And I hope that, I hadn't heard if there was an open house or anything, but I hope that community members might have a chance to see that as well. We certainly were excited by the new classroom that supports more collaborative, student-centered learning and solving open-ended problems, and has some of the technology that will help our students compete in the 21st century, so that's very exciting. We're also very excited as a committee about the solar projects that have already been completed. And of course, one of the most exciting things about that is that now the costs of electricity that we were bearing as a district that money can now is being saved, and they can go right to our students in instruction. So that's completely exciting. Several site projects have been completed, as you all know: Alvarado, Hillview Crest, Searles, Pioneer, James Logan. And one other high point, of course, on the expenditures to date has been technology, both for staff as well as for students. So the last thing to tell you folks is that perhaps the most important thing to tell you, which you already know, but I wanted to state for the public record, is that the bond measure is in compliance with all financial reviews and performance evaluations required pursuant to Prop 39. And you can see that right there on page 5 of the report. And so now if there are questions for staff or me or anyone else, you could do that or conclude.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions or comments on the Measure M?
I do, but somebody else can go first, because I'm just pulling it up right now, unless nobody else has a question. Oh, I got it now. So just as a question, I don't know if this is staff or to you, Mr. Ritchie. Looking at the report, an example, if we budgeted, say, $15 million for solar, and we've only spent $7.3 million to date, what becomes of the remaining $7.6 million in that line item? unless I'm not understanding it correctly.
Actually, the entire solar project, even though the financial report that's embedded in the annual report only shows the 7.3 million, the actual total cost of our solar district-wide was actually 7.3 million plus the 2.9 that we generated from Prop 39. It just came in differently, not part of that. But that's just to tell you that we actually spent more than 7.3 million.
Okay.
Now, we did budget 15 million for solar. What happens to those is that we now would be able to use those to offset projects that have overruns.
Okay.
Prime example, we have two that come to mind right away, which are the Logan Track and Field. We were actually nearly 2 million over budget on that. And our first ever Learning Center, which is IBC. We also ran $1 million over on that. So that's what that money would go for. Good for us that we were able to generate that, and it was actually good timing that we were able to leverage our Prop 39 dollars from the state to actually go there, and as Mr. Ritchie mentioned earlier, we would be getting those savings and could be part of our general purpose dollars.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Very much so, thank you. I have a few more questions, so I want to maybe rotate it out the rest of the group.
I think you can ask, and then if we have...
Okay. So I was on school site council at Hillview Crest back when we were originally talking about Measure M. And I remember there being a conversation around additional modernization that went beyond portables and the parking lot. To date, it looks like the only thing that's been completed over Hillview Crest has been the parking lot. I didn't see anything on the plan to identify, because you actually have, I mean, looking at the matrix where you have like the projection, the completion. For example, Hillview Crest was the only school that did not have a 21st century learning classroom identified. And I also didn't see where Hillview Crest would be getting the permanent buildings that I thought we had talked about a while ago. Can you give me like the rundown of where it stands with Hillview Crest?
Sure. There's quite a few questions in there. If I miss one, just please remind me. Hillview Crest is one of 3 elementary sites that were identified for a major modernization.
Okay.
And as you know, we've broken ground on 2 of them, which is Searles and Pioneer. There was actually quite a delay in terms of the DSA approval on that. So there is a $15 million line item for Hillview Crest, and that includes, as you mentioned, of that overall project, the parking lot has been completed. The rest of it has not. In terms of planning for those 3 that were identified, the Future Ready Learning Center is actually embedded in that line item that was allocated for them. So in other words, similar to the fact that Pioneer and Searles were not part of Phase 1 and Phase 2. I'm just trying to give an example. Pioneer and Searles were not part of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the district-wide solar because they will be embedded as part of the major modernization project. So that's what we're doing with Hillview Crest as well, for economies of scale and also efficiency measures in terms of the work and the timeline. That's what's happening because they were identified for a bigger modernization allocation.
Okay. And also, Series C hasn't yet been released yet,
We
correct?
haven't yet. We did pass the resolution so that we can notify our county treasury to actually set the tax rates, but we haven't issued it. We are on schedule to issue it this school year. It may be in the early spring.
Okay. And more questions?
Go ahead.
Okay. And then the other item that I just wanted a little bit more understanding on is the bond program administration costs $10 million. Can you tell me a little bit about like what goes into that?
Sure. So that's about 8% of the entire bond, which quite frankly is not atypical. Those types of things actually run between 8 and 13% industry standard. And that takes care of your administering of the project. Our staff who are directly managing the bond program are charged to that, including a portion of my salary. And so Like I said, that's not atypical in terms of the scale, but it goes to that. And the reality of bond programs is there are required reports and audits and inspections long after the program is done, actually, in terms of OPSC, and therefore that is what would support us in that.
So that 10 million goes to district staff managing that project or set of projects, as well as required reports and compliance efforts for how long after the bond has been spent?
I'm trying to think of the last measure that we had, which was Measure A. It went on for, at that point, we actually did get some state matching funds, and it went on for a good, I want to say, 5 years.
Okay.
From that. And part of it too, Trustee Nishihara, you may not have been in the board then. One of the original intent of that line item really was at that time to find a CM firm, a construction management firm. And that's a totally different type of expense. And luckily we didn't have to go that route because the district was able to hire internal folks.
So we budgeted for that line item for a construction management firm, but we ended up not using it.
We ended up hiring.
Hiring in-house.
Yes, in-house.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, one last question.
That's okay.
If there are things that we want to readjust priorities for, this is a twofold question.
Okay.
What is the process by which we do that, if there is a process? And also, deferred maintenance seems to be kind of a catch-all bucket. What is the process by which we put things into that deferred maintenance category?
Sure. Let me start with your first question. The development of the priorities, that's a board prerogative, quite frankly. Now, I will bring you back to what happened in 2015.
Right.
After the central, what we call the central needs or the district-wide needs were set aside, and that's to the tune of about 47 million. The difference of about 78 million, the board was actually presented with 3 options. And that's what made up this list of priorities. So in terms of the process, that would be a similar process. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that it is the board's prerogative. The important thing, of course, is that being transparent on what would be foregone or what would be skipped if we were to move those priorities.
Okay.
You had a second question, which is deferred maintenance.
Yes.
So we have a 5-year deferred maintenance plan that, of course, will get readjusted depending on what gets completed, what gets updated. And a lot of that information also considers, for example, our annual facility inspection tool, reports from especially patterns and trends that we are seeing in our work order system, the things that are being reported. You know, if there's a pattern on that, then we would look into that and look at it more globally so that it would then make it to the deferred maintenance plan. So they are based on schedules. And of course, we have staff at school sites and departments, and we rely on them to tell us, you know, the things that they observe and bring it to our attention, to our to Jason's attention. Okay. So it's a lot of those different elements together is what would develop what the annual deferred maintenance work would take.
As a matter of process, do we have an explicit and proactive process in place whereby we poll the school site councils to or site administration to kind of generate that list of things that they would want in deferred maintenance?
Well, what we tell sites is please put a work order, because that really tells us a lot. The story really, we can get a lot of information from that in terms of severity, in terms of frequency, if it's the same thing that happens all the time. That really is a lot of data mining ability for us if it's in that system that we're using. And of course, there are things that are more urgent in nature, and that would be a phone call or that would be an email. But again, I always remind staff in our MOT department is put all of that in place because that allows us to data mine and make meaningful priorities.
Okay, so the process is to either create a work order or contact you, Jason or you directly.
Yes, and even when they contact staff in MOT, they actually do still put it in the system. Because like I said, in the absence of that, it's just so important to be able to have the ability to look at these things in a more global way.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Member Wong, do you have any questions, comments? Okay, Ms. Chima?
Just want to know that in the table on slide 9, it says budget update and summary. So in the last column, it says balance. So these are the balances. They are in their school sites. We can use these funds for the future.
These are the balances to complete the bond program. The projects that are still outstanding, meaning we haven't started them, but they have been part of what was approved.
They have been already appropriated, or there's design phase or something.
They are allocated. We haven't started the design process or any of the work.
I see. So I know the bond was for $125 million.
Yes.
How much is remaining after the Series A and B?
So we've not issued C. We are scheduled to issue it in the early spring. So there's two things, the budget or the cash. So until we issue C, we're dealing with just Series A and B, which is $70 million in cash. Okay. The bond is $125 million. We've sold $70 million of those bonds.
I see. So we have, okay.
And according to this, in this report that you have in front of you, was as of March 2019.
Yeah.
Our cash at that time, it's a snapshot in time, it's about $40 million. Now, we've started a lot of major projects from that point on. So, and as you know, we presented to you the 18-19 unaudited actuals, and therefore, in the annual update that we are preparing for the bond, it will have updated numbers that would now include the year-end close of the books.
Like in the previous budget for the school from the state, you mentioned that all that money sits in the county account. So where does this money sits?
It sits in the county treasury, similar to what was written in the investment report.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Member Callis?
No additional questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I must say that money well spent, because I had made a comment last time. We had a couple of Fremont parents that had visited our Cesar Chavez Middle School site, and their comment was, your schools actually look like schools. They were very impressed. So thank you for all the hard work. And obviously, we have our Measure M banners all over our site. So I think it's a great reminder for our community members that, you know, it's their money put to good use. So thank you for that, and thank you for this presentation.
And thank you, Mr. Ritchie, once again for your time.
Can I add something for the committee? I just want to thank the committee, not for Ms. Hogue. Thank you so much for your work. I know this is extra time, and but this is your passion, I know, but it's all for the good of the kids. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, 8.2, items from the board and superintendent. We'll open it up with our student board members.
Hi. For James Logan, our upcoming events, we're just really planning in class for our homecoming events, which is like mid-October. And then we have a community event, which is movie night on the turf. And we're going to be watching Jumanji on September 27. And it's just on the turf. And it's open to everyone, so like invite your whole families. And then within our class, the ASD president and I have been talking about Colt Health, which is an initiative that we've been taking. And then it's basically like a partnership with the health center. And our first project is getting like free flu shots at the health center, which is pretty cool. And then for our school improvement committee, we've been working on starting like suggestion boxes that we're going to be putting in like all of the house offices, and basically all the students are like welcome to like put suggestions that maybe they want me to take to the board, or something they just want leadership to work on in class. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hi. For Dakota Infant Studies, there has been a few concerns regarding how as students we don't have on-campus career center or access to a library. But other than that, some really exciting news. We're going to start a community garden, and I'm actually going to start a yearbook also for our school. And then at Conley, the past week, I was informed that they started their new block schedule. And so far, the students have been really liking it. And everything's been running smoothly. And also, they're starting a yearbook for their school, so that's pretty exciting. And yeah.
All right. Not much to report. It's already been covered that October 5th is the Mud Strut, and then 2 weeks after that is the gala. On October 5th, it's kind of tough because while the Mud Strut is happening, my daughter, actually 2 of my daughters are actually going to be joining the Puente field trip to Davis.
Oh, nice.
One is going to be going with Puente. The other one is just going to visit her cousin and just kind of walk around the campus because she's looking at transferring there maybe next year. Yeah, roughly next year. And then other than that, nothing else to report.
Thank you.
That's it.
Member Wong?
Okay, and for me, and just 2 things, and I just been notified by my neighbors, the district, the Fremont Unified School District, they also starting the processing for by trustee the area, the election system. They are luckily avoided the last years, and they are followed. Finally, they're doing that, same as us. Okay, then another thing I want to announce that next Tuesday afternoon, and in the county, the Alameda County of the Education in the department, and they were hosting a virtual and a town hall meetings with the state superintendent. I encourage you guys maybe to look at this one. It's talking about on closing the achievement gap. So I think we have the same issues, and we will listen to the state superintendent to see what his suggestion, what he say. Yeah, that's all I needed.
Thank you, Jeff, for reminding us. Yeah, I will be there. I plan to be there to listen to the Tony Thurman. And then, I'm glad that I was able to attend several of our open houses in our schools and back to school nights. It was a good chance to talk to our staff, teachers, and parents. And thank you, Dr. Thompson, for being there with your cookies and water. Some of the parents or students, they thought, oh, cookies there for sale or fundraisers. But then they found out that, oh, they're free. So it was a, good gesture. And the teachers and staff, they appreciated it. Thank you so much for your hard work already and being visible on the campuses. This Thursday is a Mission Valley Regional Occupational Centers meeting. I will be attending that meeting, and also there is a meeting with the Alameda County School Boards Association, I think, so I plan to attend there too.
No, that's in October. The one for the 19th is a different kind of meeting. The East Bay Coalition.
Oh, I see. I got a notice for that. Too many meetings, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you done?
Member?
Yeah.
Okay, I will just do segue. The September 19 is the East Bay Coalition meeting, an update on the campaign for full and fair funding for our students. So we will get updates on that day. That's the same meeting day of our finance advisory as well, so it's going to be a rough day on Thursday. Again, I want to thank the Equity Council regarding putting the resolution for Latinx Heritage Month, as well as future ones that are coming up, hopefully, for different cultures. I know that Ms. Chima and Ms. Kaur were at the Kabaddi Games last Sunday. It was such an exciting event because it brings so many of our Sikh community into this, see if I could get this right, United Sports Club of California 15th World Kabaddi Cup. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
So long, I keep on getting all the words mixed up. But it is just so exciting and see the community get together, plus all the guests that come to our district and see Logan. Puts Logan on the map.
Internationally,
not just East Bay, not just the Bay Area, but internationally. So that is just an exciting event, and I hope that we will see more of you in the future at this event. It happens every year. So thank you for inviting us to this event. Again, I want to put on the record that I would like to really extremely thank the foundation for all the work that they do in raising funds for our students and our teachers, because two things. One, it's not easy to raise funds. As you can see, we're having the mud strut, we're having the gala, and it's not easy to ask people to open their wallets and write those checks. But they do that work because they really care about our students and our teachers, and they're trying to do everything they can to support where they could. So I want to really thank the foundation for the work that they do. And lastly, I know we've only been in school for a few weeks, but I would like to thank everyone from the paras, the teachers, the parents, students, staff, and superintendent for working together in trying to make this a good year. And I hope to see positive changes happening, and I think it's headed that direction. So thank you, everyone, for working together.
Thank you. I just want to segue into the schools foundation. And I know that you guys presented, I think, an $18,000 check to Conley. And if I recall, yesterday during the meeting, there was a mention of they didn't have a yearbook program before, and now with some financial help, they have the yearbook. And I do recall our student board member last time mentioned that Dakota also doesn't have yearbooks. So I would love for you guys to consider either having your teachers put a petition in for that, and if you can also take note that. I just wanted to make that plug or connect it to. So with that, I just
There's always scholarships for it.
I know, right? So and I just wanted to also add, coming up on the 20th, September 20th, is the climate change rally that a lot of the students are participating in. Internationally, I believe 150 countries are taking part in that on Friday. Some of the school districts have given permission for students to leave campus and take part in that. Others are doing more activities on campus. So I just would like to ask our district to consider having some sort of activities planned, so that way we could bring awareness to climate change, which is a very hot topic for now. That is all I have, and with that, I'll open it up to you.
I've been spending a lot of my time going to back to school nights and coffee chats and meeting with a lot of people, and Trustee Chima is correct. Everyone loves cookies. That always goes over well. So it's been fun. And I was pretty impressed with Connolly's last week, where the Scholarship Foundation did present $18,000 worth of grants, and every grant that was submitted at that site was approved. So Dakota, you can get on that and maybe get your yearbook funded next year or whenever they do their next round. One of the things I've been doing when I'm meeting with groups is gathering information, and as you know, I have a survey out there to gather input around what we value as an organization. That closes on the 30th, and from there I'll be putting that together into a report with some draft recommendations, which I'll go back out with to all of our different various groups, bargaining units and whatnot. And then in November, by the end of November, I'm hoping, like we talked about, to have a board work session probably around that second board meeting where we can review all of that input, and then if all goes well, that'll be shaped into final recommendations for board approval in December for board goals to lead our district into the next phase that we're entering into. So for those of you out there, if you haven't completed the survey, please do so. You've got about a week to do it, and that information will be the basis for everything that moves forward in my recommendations. So there's that. Kind of breaking news, we are in the process of making sure that all of our students taking AP exams that have need are having those tests provided at about, I think it's going to end up being $5 per test instead of the full amount. We're also looking at having all juniors have the opportunity to take the SAT exam during the school day. free of charge. This would be a district proctored SAT exam. We do that with a PSAT, which we kind of tease you with. You get your PSAT scores, and then you have to go find out how to take the SAT. This is the next step in that process, and I think we're there. So high school kids, if you are juniors, you can look forward to that, I think, in the spring. It looks like we'll be able to make that happen. And that's it for me at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, which is the board committee reports, 9.1. It's a report from the Budget and Finance Committee. This is Member Canlis and Member Chima, and I believe your guys' first meeting is on the 19th of September from 4 to 5:30. Do you have anything additional to report on those? On that?
Since meeting has not happened yet, so there is nothing to report, but I would like to find out if we can change the time, if you agree, if staff agrees, because I have a MVROP meeting on that day, same time, 3 p.m. Mission Valley ROP.
We've already posted that agenda. It has that. We do follow even though it's not a standing committee, we do follow the posting requirements. So the meeting's been posted and the agenda's online already. So I don't know that we can change the meeting time.
Well, I think we have an alternate, Mr. Okay. Because I have to leave early that day too, because it's the same day as the Alameda County East Bay Coalition meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
What we do is have, if Trustee Wong is available, he could fill in when either of you aren't there. So, if you're available, but I don't know. We wouldn't be able to meet the 72-hour posting requirement if we change the time. I don't think so.
We just move forward, whoever is available.
We'll move forward.
Yeah.
And the agenda is online, posted under board committees. If you look there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Next one is the report from the Communication and Advocacy, and this is myself and Member Nishihira, and our first meeting is on actually Thursday the 26th, which is the following Thursday from 4 to 5:30. And I'll let you chime in, and I think we've already talked about it last week, last time, our pre-work that we have already
Yep, we do have an update. Lauren Sagain from the City of Union City will be joining us to help give us a little bit of perspective on the process that she's helped the city get to. So that'll give us a little bit of perspective and some learnings there potentially. Other than that, we have some other activities that will be taken care of during that time around kind of learning around what currently exists in the district and just understanding how things work. But other than that, nothing to report, and we'll report back out when we have more.
Yeah, and she's certainly done a good job at the cities.
So who is the person who is joining with you? Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
The public affairs person.
The city has a public information officer, Lauren Sagayan, and staff has asked her to join us to help us frame our work as we move forward around communication and advocacy.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the public comments. Are there any visitors on topics not on the agenda?
We have one. Gavin, we have you. How are you? It's on Me Too clause.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. I just want to start off by saying I do appreciate, I've been coming to the board meetings and I do appreciate the dialogue, and maybe you guys have been doing it all the time. I haven't. You guys have been coming to board meetings more than I have. So anyway, and also John Thompson, appreciated you coming to NHTA to consult with us. I felt like that was, you felt very open to telling us things that were going on and just being engaged. What I wanted to talk about tonight, though, with the Me Too clauses, I don't know how the process is that you would get those removed, but I do want to talk about the concern that as we move forward to a new contract year where NHTA will be negotiating for a 3-year contract, hopefully. In the last cycle, the Me Too clause was very much a problem, and for our members, it's still very much a problem. There's a feeling that, number one, as teachers, when we're negotiating with the district and the district's negotiating with us, that those Me Too clauses for dollar amounts, every $10 NHTA would like to bargain for, it amounts to $30 with the CSEA and the NHAA Me Too's. And so that really does create budgetary strains. The other thing about that is that I think that one of the biggest reasons that I heard repeated why we have that or why those exist is because other districts have them. It's commonplace. But again, I want to point out that if we are declining enrollment at the last board meeting, we were down by 300. That we do have to look at where can we save money. And to me, especially when you're talking about admin getting a Me Too clause as well, it seems like an unearned entitlement that they get from the bargaining in that process. So I hope that as you guys move forward, that you guys would consider figuring out how to phase the Me Too clauses out, especially for NHAA. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you guys.
Are there any visitors on topics on the agenda?
We have one. We have Joe, who's going to talk on reinstatement of the theater director.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Cora, members of the board, student representatives, Dr. Thompson, district staff, teachers in the gallery, community members in the gallery, as well as those at home. I did want to mention to you all, I mean, I really appreciate Dr. Thompson coming to NHA to kind of give kind of a summary of why this reinstatement is coming before you tonight. We understand it very truly, the impact of that position for students and student programs and actually community at large. What concerns us, though, is the fact that this position, it appears, was, for lack of a better term, cut without a true understanding of what that position really does. The fact that you only found out how big that position serves our schools, students, and community was after the fact. And it kind of just reminds us that sometimes in the haste of trying to cut things, we miss the value of the positions that serves us greatly. This is kind of an example of that. We only found out after it was gone how much it impacted and maybe, like I said, maybe even lost some revenue for the district because the position was not in place. I really think that if there was a true collaboration and discussion of positions being on the code chopping block, a different kind of understanding could take place. It really shows that we need to take a step back and look at how we're looking on impact of positions that's going to be reduced. As a matter of fact, tonight it was celebrated by the foundation, giving grants to elementary science positions where those positions itself was again affected over the summer. And it was only now when school is getting to start, what does that impact look like for our programs that are prized in this district? So again, it points to us the whole idea that it's really important for some kind of collaborative understanding when we're looking at positions, understand the value, what those positions do, who the impact, and how they really serve this thing called New Haven Unified School District. Because obviously, to go back and bring it back before you, it's kind of an interesting dilemma for Dr. Thompson and the rest, because only after 2 months, we're already restoring a position that was couched as helping out all the different considerations we talked about last year. So I say that out loud to remind us that we must change up that conversation. I do appreciate Dr. Thompson's different conversations I've had with him, but it does again give a great example of why some things need to be really looked in detail and not after the fact. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Angeles. Moving on to the next item, action item 12.1, approval of the reinstate theater facility supervisor, Mr. McNamara.
Superintendent Thompson, Madam President and the board. Regarding this position, I appreciate Joe Angeles kind of setting the table for that discussion. One of the things that is hard to do is obviously to reduce positions. And one of the things that the superintendent, the last few times we've had cuts prior to Superintendent Thompson, is going through a pretty rigorous process and a thoughtful process with principals and directors to figure out what positions need to be reduced. I would say this, every position that gets reduced in a given year hurts the system. It hurts the system when they're gone because the work still has to be done. And I would say that this position is no different than that. One of the differences of this position, and one of the reasons why we do feel it's important to bring back is we have analyzed that
there is a lot of damage that's happening over there that we didn't foresee. And that is something that is true. One of the things that we don't want to do long-term is for the damage to be so bad that we cannot, and we're going to have to actually expend so much money to repair it, whether it's through bond money or general fund. We don't want that to happen. The other piece is, with this particular position, the funding for the position, the general fund impact is very small. 70% of it is routine maintenance and rental agreements, mostly rental agreements. The more this position can be reinstated, the quicker it can, and the more that it can target times during the year and different companies in the system or people out in the community that want to rent it, we can raise that number even higher. And that's what we're hoping. This position to be self-sufficient over time is what we're really interested in it being. But I do appreciate the fact that when Joe had mentioned what he did, being thoughtful about that particular position, it's a little bit of an anomaly, but again, it's the impact on the general fund was more symbolic, and bringing it back has a smaller impact on the general fund than other positions in the system. So it is important in our minds, but again, all positions are important, but this particular one, we feel there's an urgent need for it. So I'll take any questions you might have about this.
Questions?
No.
Comment.
Sure.
Thank you so much for the explanation. One thing when we were discussing about this, when John has proposed this position to us, I remember that we would like to seize the opportunity to have a better relationship with the community, whoever comes to rent it from us. So we need to have some kind of arrangement so that we can toot our horn about our schools in general. So that people, they know that we have first-class facilities and system, our schools, our teachers, our students, so that we can, hopefully we will be able to increase our enrollment.
And
So
the
we need
superintendent
to
can speak
kind
to
of
that.
get to that and whenever
A
we
little bit.
reach
We did,
that,
the superintendent did bring in Alan Dye, the manager, or the facilities supervisor, for a pre-meeting just to talk a few weeks ago, just to see would he even be interested. And he has lots of ideas, and he is by far the most, has the most comprehensive knowledge of that site and what can be done to generate more rentals and to generate more interest for the community and for our staff and students.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. So with that, may I have a motion and a second to approve the reinstatement of the theater facilities supervisor?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
None.
Roll call, please.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Next, item 12.2, approval of the service agreement with Swing Education Services. Mr. McNamara.
Superintendent Thompson, Madam President, and members of the board. So Swing is an organization that is a supplement to Subfinder systems. We use ASOP, which is now called Frontline in our district. And so what it's not meant to do, it's not meant to kind of usurp what our current system is. It's not meant to take over the work that our current subs do. What it is a supplement when we have hard to fill positions or are struggling to find substitutes. In a given year, our substitute expenses are about $1 million. What we are asking to do is set aside $15,000 initially for this as sort of a contained amount to really pay as you go to see if it's like this $15,000 is in a kind of a pool if we need to use it. And really what it is to start with is pay as you go if we have positions that we cannot fill. And just this week we've had positions, we had one day where there was 4 positions that were not filled and for a PD. And that makes it very stressful. As we've heard it consult before in past years, teachers hate planning for subs, having to do the lesson plans, and then being told that morning you don't go. That is very frustrating. Or, in other cases, principals have to cover classes, or people are asked on their prep to cover classes. So there's lots of things that cause upset in the system when we do not have enough subs. And the other thing that Swing provides is they do paraprofessional and classified subs better than we do in terms of the pool. They actually have a whole pool of people who do para subs. Very, very difficult to find paraprofessional subs in our district with all the special ed needs that we have. And what they do is within the 24-hour notice, they will get us as many para subs as we need from their own pool. And so it really is, we're going to try it because it is a stopgap to a conversation that I will bring forward to the superintendent, to the board, about possibly having to raise subrates. We always want to stay competitive in our subrates, and we have fallen behind the last few years to a point where maybe $5 behind many other districts in the system, but in our county. But what happens is when subs look at where am I going to go to work, and even $5 a day, they make choices. And so this is really a stopgap to see, does this kind of address our problem in terms of the sub shortage, or do we need to scrap that and actually raise the rates for sub rates? Okay, so that's why we're doing the swing as a stopgap.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, so this is just meant as a contingency in case we can't source anybody through ASOP.
That's right.
And the budgetary impact incrementally is just a 35% premium. And for
That's
that
right.
35% premium, we're getting pre-vetted. They do all that. Onboarding,
everything,
fingerprinting, credentialing, all that.
Yes.
All the verification. And so for those instances where we can't source, we're paying a 35% premium for that contingency, right?
That's right.
Okay. Any idea what the overall, if you say that our sub-budget is about $1 million, do you have a rough estimate? I know it's not going to be 1.3 because that'd be 100% of our coverage. So roughly about how much do you think that would be?
You know, I would have to do a BC to tell you if the usage is high. I don't anticipate it's going to be high.
Okay.
Dr. Thompson actually had it in his district previous. It's in many other districts in the county as well. I can do an analysis and find out kind of what a trend might be over the course of a month and see this is what our usage was, but I couldn't even begin to tell you what it is.
But the budgetary risk is relatively low because we could quit at any time.
That's right. The risk is low.
Okay.
The risk is low. What I would say is that we do on a given week have sub shortages. And so if the sub shortage is at the beginning of the year, because of all the PDs that are kind of pushed at the front, this is maybe a good time to try it out. And then after a month, I would tell you, you know what, this is what the usage is, this is what the cost is, this is a good thing, or you know what, it's really not working for us, I really need to bring back the sub rates to be raised.
Okay, if it's a pleasure of the board, would it make sense for us maybe in 3-4 months' time to get a report out and see kind of what the usage is like?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
I was just thinking of the same thing, to see and review and evaluate, and then see how it works and if it's beneficial for us.
Yeah, it's a new thing for us, and I think it's exciting to have another option.
Right, and then, but at the same time, I think we should also start thinking about the sub rates.
Yeah, I want to be thoughtful about it. Timing wise, I want to make sure I'm thoughtful about everybody in the
Yeah.
system too, and doing a raise for something like
Yeah,
that. So
sounds good.
I have a question, and I trust you did a lot of research, and for the neighboring district, which district is using their system? I know this company is from Bay Area.
Yes.
The companies, and I think they're in the peninsula. And do we need to pay those, like the teachers from move from the South Space or the other place and pay the transportation charge? No. Okay. And do you have any kind of the information like the reputations, the rates, and if you have information?
So the way the rates work is that say we had a paraprofessional who makes $100 a day. They will pay their person, because the person comes from their pool, they'll pay them that $100 a day. Then they'll invoice us for that $100, plus another $35 to cover the overhead cost. So it's really $135 cost to us, because it's 35% over that. So for a teacher, it's $150, it'll be a little bit more than that in terms of the overhead.
No, I mean the qualities, and for the other district, they have some kind of comments and...
everything we've heard from other districts has been very positive.
Okay.
And most of them have ASOP, so it is compatible with ASOP, so it actually works with our system and interfaces with our system. Whereas some districts, one that we called, I think it was Newark, doesn't have the same system, so they don't interface the same way. So it's a little bit more manual. This one actually is a very seamless interface.
So maybe Superintendent can answer your question a little bit better too, since he's used that in San Leandro.
When I was at San Leandro, we used the system for over 2 years and found it to be really helpful. It was, in terms of creating operational efficiency and teacher happiness, it was worth every penny. So, and the quality, if you have a problem with a sub, you just tell them that one substitute didn't work out, and they never come back. So it worked out really well.
But I think part of the question is if the extra that we pay, the $35 we pay, we need to reevaluate to see if that is better than attracting the subs if the daily rates will be higher. So we need
could
to
I just tell you the
evaluate.
other piece of it, and Dr. Thompson can jump in, but the other piece of it, if we find that raising the sub rates is a cost that's really untenable for this year, but we really like the way that swing works because they really are doing the job that we need at that rate, what you do is then we can lock in the rate and go to 25%.
Ah.
And so then we can actually do that on a more regular basis, and then it becomes it's more regular. And so that I'd have to find out more details, but that is how the 25% would be a lower rate for us to have to pay, but they get more regular work for their subs. And then that would be, we would do that only probably if we weren't going to do the sub rate increase.
Right, that's why it's good that Mr. Nishihara suggested that we review and reevaluate to see how it goes.
Just a comment. Ultimately, the board's going to have to look at sub rates and possibly keep swing in the background too. The beauty of swing is it's a use it when you need it, but we are falling behind most comparable districts in terms of our sub rates. So at some point, that's going to have to be addressed regardless of whether we use swing or not.
No, that's true.
Member Chima.
Comment and question. So how much we are paying to our teacher subs now? I thought we are paying equal to the area. I know
we were number 3 for a long time in the county. Fremont has always been number 1. They also, their subs are in the union though, so they pay union dues, so they have to pay a little bit higher for the rates. And it was always them, and then there was another district that was always higher. You know, one other district, usually Hayward, and now we probably dropped to like 7th or 8th. And so we pay $150 a day for subs, and then $160 for long term.
So how much a Fremont and Hayward pay?
Yeah, 184.
I think we need to, I mean, it's my personal opinion, but I think we need to match with them. Whatever Fremont or Hayward are paying, so we need to pay the same amount to our subs. That's one suggestion, that's my opinion. And the second one is, like, I just came to know that it's around $1 million in a year. So when I looked into the contract you have mentioned, there were 2 options, Plan A and Plan B.
Yes.
I know at this time we are opting for the Plan B.
Just to see.
Yeah, just to see, we are piloting. But from this conversation, it feels now that we will need the services, and because it's a cheaper Plan A, so that I think it's better to choose Plan A then, because it will be 25% instead of 35%. But I am
the good thing is you can jump into the 25 anytime.
Yeah, but I would like my fellow board members to think about it and give the direction to our superintendent that we need to match the sub rates to our area, Fremont and Union, the Hayward.
So
Yeah.
can I just say one thing about that? So I share your interest in raising the sub rates, but I do have to do an analysis to see what the cost impact would be, because at a time when we're doing reductions, I want to make sure that that cost to jump all the way up isn't going to be something that's going to be an untenable amount. We also want to find out, it can be kind of like chasing your tail. If you raise the rates a little bit, then the people next to you raise their rates a little bit, so you're always kind of chasing that. I want to find a number that works well, that is going to be attractive to our subs, and we can actually afford. So that'll come later.
It's my just quick calculation in my mind, just to mention, is 1 million cost in a year for our subs. Then if it's we're paying 150, it's 185, $35 more. So it's not going to be much. It's going to be still, in my opinion, pennies. So please consider. I mean, I'm asking my fellow board members to consider that too.
Thank you, and I think that was the request made. So maybe perhaps by the end of the semester we can get a report out and see how that looks. And I think just one last comment on this topic. I know that I was talking to someone earlier, and they did say that it does affect them when we don't have enough subs to cover for their PDs or other things that are scheduled. So definitely to have it as a backup, I think it's worth it. And obviously, once we have the report out, we can see which direction we want to go. So thank you. Are there other questions on this? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the services between Swing and New Haven Unified School District.
That's more. A second.
Discussion.
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that members have questions on, would like clarification, or pulled for a separate vote?
I'd like to, not for separate vote, but for comment or question 13.9 and 1310.
Okay. Others?
No.
None from, okay. Anything from you, Ms. Ms. Chima?
No.
All right, so let's start with 13.9 then.
Yeah, this is more of a comment. One of the things that I'd like to just start being a little bit more tuned in into are the types of PDs that we're doing, understanding their effectiveness. One of the things that I'm less familiar with than I'd like to is the concept of universal design for learning. What I would love to do is I'd love to learn a little bit more about that and how it fits into our overall program. That, as well as, so I do have some answers here, but I think what I'd love is a presentation for what that program is. That's what I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a comment to Mr. Nishira. I know on some of the PDs in the past, we were invite board members, if they're available, they can come join us, join the staff, once in a while, just to experience. Is that possible? Again, please take a look into it.
We can definitely let you know when the PDs are happening. It'd be good for the board to stop in and see what's happening. And the Ed Services Department is going to be doing a board presentation coming up, and maybe we can weave that because they're going to be talking about their big initiatives anyway, and we could probably weave that in there.
That's perfect.
Sure. Okay.
Scott, did you get that? Okay, thanks.
13.10 then, Mr. Nishihira.
Okay, 13.10. I just wanted to I wanted to understand. I got some answers around what this engagement looks like. I understand that it's not funded through LCFF, and that it is grant funded. I just wanted to kind of understand a little bit more about what we think the outcome is for this workshop. And the reason why I'm asking is I have actually attended some of these in the past, at least one that I think is related to this. And I just want to really understand how we're really understanding whether or not this is going to be effective and how are we measuring the outcomes on that.
Scott, okay.
Good evening, members of the board. I'd like to be able to defer to Nancy George from the Union City Family Center, as this was a grant which was applied through the Family Center to be able to serve our community. So with that, I'll turn.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. In terms of the outcomes, we have deliverables around working with parents to develop leadership skills, to increase their knowledge of child development, and also to work with the parents and kids together around enrichment, which includes the arts. And so this consultant has expertise in early childhood and in the arts, has developed programs like Habitat, which is in Berkeley and very well known for the great work that they do. And so this is part of our grant deliverables to be able to deliver this kind of service. I think what is different from your previous experience, which I was also involved in, is that we're very specific with her around what outcomes we're looking for. We will be working directly with her to set the agendas, to review the curriculum, to evaluate how the sessions go, and it's a much tighter deliverable around what we're asking her to do. It's focused on child development, being able to work with your children at home around education. This is part of our grant to get kids ready for school. And so it's really focused on helping parents to understand what their kids need to be able to do to get ready for school, and also getting the kids used to working in groups, being in a social environment. A lot of these kids are not in preschool, and so this is a way to begin to expose them to those kinds of things. So there'll be parent workshops where they're getting parenting skills. There will be some leadership workshops, and then the parents from those leadership workshops are going to lead something called Open Studio, where parents and kids are doing art activities together.
Okay, thank you.
Can you send us some more details about the dates or when it's happening, timings about these workshops?
The timings?
You can send us later on.
Yeah, I can certainly send, we're putting flyers together, I can certainly send those forward. I believe the parenting workshops are going to be in the mornings from, I think, 9 to 11:30, or maybe 10 to 12:30. Anyway, it's the mornings after parents who have school-age kids have dropped their kids off at school so that they can come and join us. The leadership workshops, I believe, are actually scheduled for the afternoons. And I think Open Studio, though, is also in the mornings to accommodate young children who often take naps.
So it's open for everybody, anybody in the Union City area.
Yes.
So I think member Nishira was asking about before there was like a parents class, I think. So this is different from that. This is for the preschool parents.
It
or
is for the
grandparents.
preschool
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you. I saw some flyers at the Kitayama Elementary School back to school. Thank you, just want to make sure.
Thank you, Ms. George. All right, with that, I don't think were there any other items for discussion? No? May I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 13.1 through 13.18?
So,
I'm a second.
Did you get the person who made the motion? Who?
Go ahead.
oh, I did,
Okay.
yes, I moved.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you had that. Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you. And we have no items on the next portion of the agenda. So do we have any updates on 15.1, which is the board request
We
to
do.
the staff? Okay.
So one of the outstanding items is the bathroom notification process in bathrooms at Logan. I met last week with the student leadership group, great group, and they provided some good feedback. They liked the idea. They suggested also adding like a Google form that they could take. So there's the immediate items and the notification process, and they had some creative ideas about that. But in general, I think we're looking at signage that can, with a text or a telephone option, or please notify the office if you don't have that. And then also structurally having probably on the webpage or somewhere a place where students could go in and say, well, there's not an immediate need, but the hair dryer's not or the hand dryer's not working here, that, and be able to fill out a more comprehensive survey. So the next step in the process is to schedule a meeting with with Jason and Jacob and the crew over there and figure out how to operationalize that. And then it's just going down to the sign store down the street and putting up signs, and I think we're ready to go. So I hope, knowing how things go and knowing that we're already almost in October, if we could launch this by the new year, I think that would be a good target, probably very doable.
It's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Cool.
There are
We've been
some.
waiting for that for a while, right?
Yeah, and while I don't know that we can replace every fixture like we costed out, there certainly are some things that we can piecemeal and go along when we need to, and then look at it when we look at the bond as a whole, how we want to address the facilities and the structures and fixtures and whatnot there.
What I heard was if there's something that needs to be fixed, we put in a work order for it.
We have a way to get it done. Yeah, that too. That's it. So that's in progress. We'll keep you updates as we go along. And then I picked up, I think we had a new item that we will put up for consensus, which was, it looked like everybody's in agreement, but we'll add it to the consensus list, which is a swing usage report along with a substitute rate analysis. And we'll have that on the consensus. Am I seeing consensus there? Yep.
Yeah, I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Good. And then that is, I think, do we have any other carryovers from? Nope. Okay. So now we're up for new items, if there's anything.
So that was one of the new items. Are there any additional items you'd like to take
I've got
for
one.
consensus?
So one of the things that I thought was a great learning from last year was that the community really wants to engage with the board in a much more conversational way. Right now, this is actually a business meeting, and we conduct this business meeting like a business meeting, and so it's not always the best format to have conversations. We started with with a couple different committees, but those are kind of like working committees where we try to get work done. One of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like to see if there is a way for the staff to put together, of course within the boundaries of the law, some type of format whereby either a minority, actually two or less board members can meet with members of the public in a much more relaxed setting where it's conversational and might topic bound, might be about some specific topic. But I would love for for the staff to kind of put together a recommendation for how we might do that and engage with various pockets of interested community members and or school members. One of the things that in talking with some former members or members of the community, there used to be a forum that was, I forgot what it was called, but it was like all of the school site council chairs and co-chairs all coming together at the district level to have conversations like that. That might be one way to do it, but I just want to kind of put it back to staff potentially to kind of come up with a recommendation whereby we can have more relaxed conversations, not in this context.
I'm wondering if that's one of the things that the communication group could work on.
We could definitely add that to the communication and advocacy agenda, because I think we would need more input. For example, do you want, like, weekly coffee chats for the board? Do you want a town hall? Do you want a, what is it? So I think that's a good agenda item for the communication and advocacy committee.
And it's a suggestion because, as you know, we cannot respond to comments that are being made. And you made points about what you were talking about today, but we can't say anything from this forum. But in what you're suggesting, whatever you decide on doing, it would allow us to be able to hold a conversation and work together on marching toward the same direction.
Sure.
That
So
way everybody's on the same page.
I like it. We'll add that to the communication and advocacy meeting agenda and come back with a recommendation. The committee can recommend something to the board.
Let's go with member
I
Long
am
first.
concerned, are you talking about like a SSC, like a school site consulting?
Well, no, that was just an example that one community member had given us, that they used to have these committees that were kind of like kind of collected committees or representatives from the different site councils. That was just one thing, but like I said, what I'm more interested in the outcome that I think that we should be looking at is a more conversational format where we can engage in open conversation on a variety of topics, or maybe one or two topics or something like that.
So I think there is a limit on the Brown Act that if the item is not on the agenda for so long, for example, for 3 months or something, then we can discuss all those things. So if we have, for example, the problem we are seeing is a Brown Act violation, that's why we are not doing it. So we need to find out from our attorneys that how much is the time gap that even if somebody asks those questions, they might be on the future agenda item, maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever, so we can discuss those. I think, in my opinion, as long as we agendize is as it is a board communication or listening session or a town hall, there should not be a problem, but figure it out, please.
We'll come up with we'll come prepared at the communication and advocacy meeting to come up with some parameters that we can look at, and I think that's the perfect forum to discuss that, because we'll have 2 board members that can provide input. So that's perfect.
So only thing is that all board members, they can participate. Only thing is that the discussion should not be on the agenda item for some time. There is a some time period limit, that's all.
That's what the committee will do. They're not going to do anything that is not.
I mean, it's not that absolutely you cannot discuss it, but there is some time limit. That's what my understanding is.
That's something we can probably have them look into. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of us either, communicate via email or we communicate one-on-one, but does it make sense for members to publicly have a coffee, or I think you said coffee chess. I don't know who would come and play chess, but
No, I'm sorry, coffee chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said coffee and chess. I was like, I don't think I can show up to that one. Right. And I think you're probably talking similarly how a lot of the city council members, right, they may have coffee with the council or something along those lines. So it'd be good, I think, and we'll report out once we have some sort of scenario built in. And I think I might also add, I'm looking at Joe Angelos standing right there. Him and I had conversation several times now, and I think we're also considering having ongoing dialogue with NHTA and NHTA e-board. Either we'll have to probably work that out in our communication and advocacy committee as well as to how that will look. And I think it's important for us as members of the Board of Education to really hear that side of the concern as well. So, and that was something that was really brought out in our past few months. So that's something Joe and I have talked about, and we'll certainly include that on the agenda for the committee and advocacy.
Yeah, I think Joe's even identified a couple of dates that the board could participate in their consult. So we'll talk about that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think we have an agreement, so it'll just be agendized as part of our committee.
That's right.
Okay, very well. Well, thank you. I think there are no, well, actually, let me go that back. Are there other requests for the staff?
I think that's a lot.
I know that is a lot, so that's good. I just want to make sure we get to everyone. All right, with no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.